There's always another side to a situation. For everything, there's another side. That is something that's woven into the universe. It may not be obvious, but it's true in every situation. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Time Business Devo, where we use biblical principles to live a God-honoring and high-performance life. I wanted to share with you something that was part of my morning devotional. It just hit me as a little mindset shift that is really subtle in this little passage that I'm going to read. I'm going to read from Psalm 84, verse 4 through 6. So blessed are those who dwell in your house. They will still be praising you. Blessed is the man whose strength is in you, whose heart is set on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a spring. The rain also covers it with pools. This is talking about someone whose life desires the things of God, right? By the way, when the Bible talks about blessed is the one who dwells on the laws of the Lord and who delights on the laws of the Lord. By the way, that's not disciplinarian. That's not something that is oppressive. I think in the last episode, I talked a little bit about how the laws that govern success are put in place by God. Delighting on those laws, desiring to be part of them and congruent with them, in line with them. That's how you live a happy and successful life. Someone taught me that a few months ago, and it actually shifted my mindset a lot because I always saw that as a disciplinarian thing, like the laws. But really what it is the principles. It's the laws that govern the universe. It's the things that can help you or hurt you depending on if you're in line with them. And delighting in them and dwelling in them means that you understand them and you work with them. And by doing that, you'll be blessed. But here's what's really interesting. For those people, as they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a spring. The rain also covers it with pools. The valley of Baca is loosely translated. Some people think it's a literal place where essentially a lot of sorrow happened. And other translations will translate the valley of Baca to the valley of weeping. Regardless, either one, it's a really dark place. So as these people walk through the valley of weeping, as you walk through the valley of weeping, as you walk through the valley of Baca, it says, they make it a spring. And that's what jumped out to me. And this is where I want to this is the whole point of this Devo. It doesn't say God makes it a spring. It says they make it a spring, which means that your perspective on a situation is the way you feel about the situation, is the result of the situation. You have the ability, you have the control to make something great or make something not great. Look, some situations are bad, and it's not saying avoid the reality of difficult and sorrowful situations, but you have the ability to change it. You have the ability to change your perspective on it. And that may sound really hard, but it can be hard. But I think that's a really powerful thing. There's this law in physics called the Law of Polarity. And the Law of Polarity states that there is an opposite thing for every thing in the world. For every negative, there's a positive. For every positive, there's a negative. The Law of Polarity says that for every situation, for everything, there's another side. That is something that's woven into the universe. It's a law of physics. It's true in every situation. It may not be obvious, but it's true in every situation. And I thought that it was really powerful that in this psalm, they're not saying as they walk through it, God made it a spring. What they're saying is as they pass through the valley of Baca, the valley of suffering, the valley of sorrow, as they pass through it, they make it a spring. I actually started journaling several years ago. And what's been really interesting about that has been, I realized that in general, my situation isn't the thing that's dramatically changing all the time. What's dramatically changing all the time is my perspective on the situation. I realized that because I would write in some situations and have a very positive, hopeful, energetic, excited outlook. Other times I'd write and have a doubtful, less hopeful outlook. For me, it was a more difficult time, but the reality is my general situation didn't dramatically change in those times. Now, there are times when our situation does change. Things happen that are really bad, and that's going to happen to all of us. We all go through that. And that's not saying that those are not really bad things. Those are not really hard things. Those are not things that you need comforting for. And by the way, God promises to be with us and comfort us. But if you delight yourself in the law of the Lord, if you dwell in the law of the Lord, then you will have the ability, this is the promise here, you have the ability to make it a spring. And so the obedience side of this, the sort of like tactical, what do I do side of this is getting yourself in the word and delighting in his laws and the laws of the kingdom. You should be searching those out because those are laws that when you're in line with those laws, they make your life great. So you don't want to be in opposition to those things. And that's why delighting in them allows you to have the ability to choose how you feel in these situations. And that choosing how you feel, that changing your perspective, it's easier said than done. And we know that because it's really a muscle. And what I like to try and do for myself to try and like exercise that muscle is exercise that muscle on a daily basis in small situations where it's not a dramatic situation. It's really just, you may wake up and be on the wrong side of the bed, or you may get an email and see it from a negative point of view. It's not necessarily a situation that's really, truly bad situation, a difficult situation in our lives, right? There are these situations all day long where we can choose to see the positive side or the negative side. And I like to try and condition myself to try and exercise that muscle in those small situations. I was taught this a little while ago. Your brain is going to reject something that you can't just tell your brain, like, this is a good thing. You can't just tell it because your brain's going to say nope, and it's going to reject it. What you can do is you can position that as a question. And because you have two minds and you have to coach your other mind, you can ask that same brain question and it won't reject it because it's a question, and your brain is made to solve problems. A simple, tactical little hack for helping you see the other side of things would be, what is good about this? Just ask that question. Just say that to yourself. How can this be a good thing? My business coach, one of them, because I have several, said to me when looking forward I was looking at taking what I perceived as a pretty big risk. It was actually hiring a certain person to run a certain side of the business, and they were very expensive, more expensive than I had paid anyone else before. And it was an investment in a new area of the business, an expansion of the business. My business coach helped me walk out this strategy where you think of the worst case scenario, like what's the worst thing that could happen. The strategy actually came from a runner. In training, he would think about the worst scenario, like what if, like when it's raining and pouring and I'm running, my laces are untied, it's painful, it's raining, it's bumpy, it's uphill. He would train in a normal scenario when he's just running outside, and he would imagine that worst case scenario. And he would actually imagine that scenario when he was just sitting around not actually running, to prepare mentally for that scenario. My business coach had reminded me of this tactic, and we started to adapt it, right? So what's the worst case scenario if this endeavor goes wrong? Like what's the worst thing that could happen? We talk about it specifically. And then you start asking yourself the question about that potential worst case scenario. How could that be a good thing? And you might say it's not a good thing. But in business, we know, or you should know, that learning is the valuable thing. You do it and you fail. Now you're hopefully closer to doing it the right way again. So one of the good things is now we've learned a lot and we're closer to doing it the right way again. And you just start to unpack it. Like, how could this be a really good thing? When I'm fearful that business is going to slow down, like new business and new sales in a certain area of our business is going to slow down, I ask myself, how could this be a good thing? One of the good things is I get more time, or my team gets more time to work on things that we haven't been able to work on before. So there's always another side to a situation. And the way that the kind of hack for your brain is just to bring it home. If you're spending time understanding the laws, the success principles, and I call them that because they really are. They're really painful when you're working against in opposition of, but when you're working with them, that's how you live a great life and be successful in this life, not even in the afterlife. When we're delighting ourselves in success principles, the laws that govern everything in the world, then our promises will have the ability to see the other side of the situation, to make the valley of sorrow and suffering a spring, to make the valley of weeping a spring. It doesn't take a miracle for that to happen. It takes a choice. When we have exercised that muscle and we've put ourselves in the law, we get the ability and the strength to actually change the situation probably by changing our perspective, maybe even by changing the situation. And that verse even goes on to say the rain also covers it with pools. I mean, so this is a valley. You have the ability to make a spring, and so much so that it covers the valley with pools. Like it actually, if you take this and translate the visual into like a situation, it's like takes a bad situation, doesn't even make it okay, but it makes it great. That's powerful. And so that's something that I thought was cool to share. It's something that I'm chewing on today. Hopefully this was useful for you. Hopefully this helps you live a better life, a high performance life, and a God-honoring life. Thank you. Have a great day. Never stop growing.